This is a Vespa Rally 200 1974. So this video is about what you should check if you want to buy a vintage scooter like this. And if you find it in a barn or in a garage somewhere, stored for many years, what you should check, like to know exactly what you're buying. So every little detail will affect the value of the scooter itself. So let's start with this. First thing that you have to check is the registration itself. You have the tag here is a 1984. That was the final registration year of this bike. It was sold in Quebec in Montreal, for fact, Louis Kilikou, which was the distributor of the Vespa in Quebec and some part of Ontario. The Rally 200 is pretty rare in Canada. We had a lot of Rally 180, but not the Rally 200. So it's an interesting model, and this one is all original with the original paint. So it's really interesting. If you want to buy a scooter like this, it's in perfect shape. So for us, it's a clue that the bike will get a better price for that. If you look here, you have all the US DOT feature, okay, for the American model. In Canada, we follow the same rule as the DOT. It's easier for us to just copy the US DOT rules. So you have those turn signals. Turn signals, they were mandatory after 1974. So it makes sense. This is a 1974, so it's the first year with those turn signals. And you have the big light here, the same as a PX for the US model and Canada model. And it's a license plate holder. We bought it from the original owner, so we have all the history. He bought it new in 1974. You have the original paint, so in the same time you have the original running in sticker, and you have the typical Canadian VIN or identification plate. As you can see here, it's a VSC 1T, which is exactly what it's supposed to be. It's a Rally 200 electronic. So it's the first year of the electronic ignition. They are not known to be really reliable. We had a lot of issues with that specific kind of electronic ignition, but it works, and this one is all original. Another thing that you should check is the tire here. It's a Seat tire, it's the original tire. And here you have the original big US reflectors and you have a large horn here because it's a DC model, so it runs on a battery. Still those ugly turn signals. Some people like that. And this is specific to the US model. You have this small headset that came from a Primavera model, and you have a seal beam in front. So it's typical for the US model until I guess it's 1986. Every headlamp had to be sealed. It's a sealed type, so you cannot change the bulb, you have to change the whole unit. So that gives you some idea. Now, let's check something very important. What's the condition of the engine itself before to buy it? So this one is stuck. So the bike is in really good shape, but the engine is stuck. So we don't know what's happened inside the engine. Could be something stupid. Could be just the piston that is slightly seized. But it could be really bad, with bad bearings and bad crankshaft. So that could be an incentive. I mean, not an incentive, but a point, to discuss with the seller, because it might cost a lot of money. Also, if you took this seat off like this, let's check the condition of the tank itself. Okay, it's all rusty and it smells, it's terrible. it stinks. So the gas is rotten inside, so it has to be restored. We have to flush the tank and clean it, and it's a job for a professional because it's more complicated to clean it, but it's worth to do it because we want to save the original paint on this tank. And what else we have here? Let's have a look. You have the original key. Well, no, it's not exactly the original. This seems like a reproduction of the original keys, but in the same time, we have a complete set, and we can lock, so it works. So this is a good point. Right here, you have the original speedometer in perfect shape, and the numbers are not faded. And if you look, it's in miles, because in Canada, we switched to the metric system only in 1980 or 82, I have to check. And this one has only 7,400 miles on the clock. So the numbers are red. It's typical for the all the speedometers in miles, Imperial. So you have that little switch here for the flashers. Interesting fact, there's no key for the ignition, so it relies on this switch here. So you just make everything alive by turning the switch. And technically, if the battery was good, you can hear the horn right here. Now let's have a look inside the glove box for the surprise that we have here. So the first thing that we find is the old cables, which is nice, but we won't never use those old cables because they are all corroded. But let's have a look inside of this. What we have, it's a little flyer here. I think it's for the condition of the battery, you know, how to maintain the battery itself. And this is really important because we have here the original title for this bike. And the last year was 84. So this is a good point. If you live in Quebec, it's now impossible to get new titles if you don't have this paper. So if you lost the paper, you're done. You won't never be able to restore it, to put it back on the road. But this one has the original paper, so for us it's really important. And as you can see, there's always some mistake. It's supposed to be VSC, and we have a 4 here. So we're gonna have to play with that or check with the police, but that's an issue. And the name on this, Mr. Richard, we bought it from this guy, so he bought it new in 1974. Another nice thing that we find here, and this is very rare, it's a cool CEV headlamp, and you can switch to BAV 20D bulbs, headlamp bulbs. So you can replace the bulb on this thing. The US model has a seal beam type, so it's exactly the same light like this. Instead, you have only a plug and you cannot change the bulb on it. So this is the original one like this, made by CEV with the original stamp like this. It's close to impossible to find today. I mean, it doesn't exist. You have a reproduction, but it's pretty poor. I mean, the quality is not that good, but a reproduction is available for if you want to convert a US model, a seal beam type to a bulb type like this. So this is a good point. I don't know where he got that piece, but it's really rare. So we're gonna have to use it because the guy said that the headlamp is burned in front. So as you can see, you have the typical here, a Primavera headset with this huge headlamp that is mounted right in front of it with the original turn signals and the original paint. So that gives you a good cue of what you have to check if you want to buy a vintage scooter like this that sat in a barn for a long time. But it's a really nice scooter. So voila. Thank you.